Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Rossinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go in to the breach on the Veritas Catholic Radio Network, 1350 on your AM dial, 103.9 on your FM dial, spreading the truth of the Catholic faith to the New York City metropolitan area. Two things: download the app, share it with your friends. You'll have access to all of our station's content. And please, 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 wherever you see this video, and you'll understand why I'm saying this in a second, more so than any of our other interviews, please share this video. This is going to be a rather important, I guess in modern times, it would be considered a controversial conversation. But Joe and I don't care, and nor does our guest, Katie McCarthy, because she runs an organization. She is the director of marketing for Protect Our Kids. Let's say that one more time. Protect our kids. You hear that, Merrick Garland? Because we don't care, all right? We're going to protect kids from all the filth and corruption that's out there. Katie's on the front lines of that. Joe and I say all the time, we're going into the breach. Dudes, we're going into the breach today. Katie McCarthy, as I said, is director of marketing for Protect Our Kids. She's long been engaged in the culture wars to protect the unborn, traditional marriage, and the nuclear family. After a successful career in direct response marketing, Katie left her position as executive vice president to homeschool her 4 children. During this time, she applied her marketing expertise to further the missions of several nonprofit and political organizations. In her role at Protect Our Kids, Katie is devoted to sounding the alarm about the dangers in public education while helping them find alternative solutions. Katie McCarthy, welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe, sister.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, public education. So when we got here, just quick a story. When we got here, our son, 14-year-old son, was in. It was kind of a little confusing of a transition. So
Tell
he had
people where you are, Joe. Where?
Arizona. And when we got here, we had to put him in public school. Do you want to know for one semester? Do you know the fear that went through my bones, knowing that my son had to go to public school, even if it was for a half a second, let alone half a semester? All right. Because and then when he came home, true to form, the public schools here are not that much different than New Jersey or California, where it's all rainbow flags and it's all DEI and it's all this stuff that Joe and I are fighting against all the time. Again, one more time, we're adults. We see this stuff coming, Katie McCarthy. Okay. You stay away from our kids. And that's what we're going to talk about. So welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. I think public education is probably one of the greatest threats that our country faces right now. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Joe, Katie. We're going to have a great conversation.
Okay.
We'll start with a prayer. We always begin with a prayer in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, never was it known that anyone who sought your help or sought your intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, we fly unto you, a virgin of virgins, our mother. To you we come, for you we stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not our petitions, but in your clemency hear and answer us, amen.
Amen.
I think a good place to start is the organization, Protect Our Kids, how it got started. But I also want to just say for people who are listening, we're not fighting against people. We're fighting against ideas. These ideas have been tried. We're going to get into that a little bit and later on in the conversation already in Europe, and Europe is backing away from them because they have not been successful. That's a very important point. But we don't hate anybody. What we hate is this idea, and we think it's being masked. And in many cases, it's being pushed on children. And frankly, that's not the business of anybody. And that's what Katie is addressing with her organization. And I commend her and her husband because it's about grassroots organizations right now in America. You want to fight against something, it has to be at the grassroots level, because in many respects, the states, even some of the most conservative states, and the federal government is not on your side. If you want to be successful, you have to be successful at grassroots organizations, and that is exactly what she's doing. So tell us about Protect Your Kids, Katie.
Okay, protectourkidsnow.org is the website, and it was founded in 2019 by a career attorney named Mark Schneider. Mark, about 20 years ago, his church approached him and asked him to start a public policy ministry, which he did, called Salt and Light Ministry in Southern California. And he was involved in a lot of pro-family kind of legislation. So, for example, I don't know if you remember, but Proposition 8 in California,
Yes.
in 2008, they put it before the voters to vote to embed in the California's Constitution the definition of marriage as between one man and one woman, and it won by a significant margin. Unfortunately, the courts came in and overturned it, and that went by the wayside. But that was one of the fights that we were overlapping on. And so I actually was approached by a friend who had her kids in Catholic school. My kids were all homeschooled, and she was telling me about all this comprehensive sexuality education that came into the public school system because of a law that was passed in 2016. It was the California Healthy Youth Act, and this mandated comprehensive sexuality education in middle school and in high school. A few years later, it was everywhere: elementary school, kindergarten, pre-K. But the idea of comprehensive sexuality education is not the sex ed of our youth. It's not biology. It's not how babies are born. It's really a total ideology that includes something called SOGI. That's SOGI, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender theory, where they're separating your, the in your head what you think you are in terms of your gender from your actual biology. So you can be a boy in a girl's body or a girl in a boy's body, and then there's a whole non-binary fluid thing. Anyway, I couldn't believe that this was getting into schools. So I had this girl in her organization came in, and it was the grassroots. It was called Informed Parents of California. They came to my house. I invited a bunch of moms. They gave us a presentation. And from that moment on, I knew I had to get involved. And what I found is, being a homeschooler, it was a little bit easier to get involved because I wasn't like right there in the line of fire with the other people who were kind of pushing this stuff. So I was able to sort of quietly bring the attention to this. So my paths crossed with Mark Schneider's path, and he decided to start a 501c3 nonprofit, and that's Protect Our Kids. So I've been with them since the beginning for 4 years. And our mission is to enlighten parents and to give them tools to protect their kids from public, indoctrination in public schools, and the gender theory, critical race theory, social and emotional learning, historical revisionism. There are so many threats, and they're coming in the form of clubs and guidance counselor and private sessions and child protection services. It's just amazing what's happening.
It's all cut from the same diabolical cloth, if you ask me. People try to separate out critical race theory from gender theory and what's taught in schools. No, it's all part of the same fight that we're in. And again, if you say something about gender theory, you're this word which is just a leftist construct. You're a homophobe. I don't even know what that means. I have an irrational fear of nothing. Okay. But they use that same way you're a racist if you oppose Ibram Kendi or some of these others. Just Joe and I, quite frankly, we're tired of hearing it. Simply by disagreeing with them, they're going to call us haters anyway. So might as well just stand toe to toe with them and say the answer is no. The answer is no, especially when it comes to our kids. If you're just joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, Katie McCarthy's joining us here. ProtectOurKidsNow.org. That's the organization. That's the topic of the conversation today. Katie, let me ask you this. I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Killing Fields, right? I bring it up all the time because in the movie, when the Khmer Rouge take over in Cambodia, there's a scene where there's two of the Communist Party teachers, if you will, at this camp. They have all the little kids in front of them, right? Who are all sitting there, all innocent. And there's like a poster board, right, with stick figures, and it's obvious that it's two parents with their hand on a stick figure of a child. And one of them goes up to the little kid and gives him the chalk, and the kid goes over and crosses out the parents, and they all kind of applaud like this because. Why people don't understand this battle that we're in. That's the goal. That's the goal, is to cancel out the parents. That scene says it all about what's going on right now. So my question to you is this. Nowadays we hear, who are you? You're not qualified. You're not a teacher. You're not qualified to say what your kids should be taught. There's videos going around where they blatantly say they're not your kids. Katie McCarthy, whose kids are they?
They are our kids. And you know what? When it comes to the most expensive things that we have to do for them, like provide them with food and shelter and college tuition and transportation and medical care, the government's very happy to allow us to take over those responsibilities. But when it comes to educating our kids, in the name of reading, writing, and arithmetic, what they're really doing is they're teaching our kids values and politics and religion. And the scores on the reading, writing, and arithmetic are horrendous. But you're right, they are indoctrinating. In order for a Marxist revolution to be successful, you have to target the nuclear family, and you have to separate the parents from the children. And that's exactly what they're doing with this curriculum.
Katie, I want to stay there 1 second. Joe, if you don't mind, I want to stay there 1 second. We have to blow up this lie that the fundamental building block of American society is the individual. It is not. The fundamental building block of American society, or any healthy society, is the family. That's your buffer between the individual and the state. The primary institution that, now we know that they go after every other institution also. That is the central institution, like you said, that has a target on its back. Because listen, back in the day when there were big families, we could all think of big Irish families, big Italian families, big German families, okay? You didn't give a damn what the government had to say. Get off my back, especially if you lived in a neighborhood with a lot of other large families. Government didn't have much sway there. That's why they have to wreck the family. I love your comments on that.
Well, also, they're redefining the nuclear family. The nuclear family consists of man, woman, marriage, sex, and babies. And all of those words have been redefined. I mean, what is a woman? I don't know. I'm not a biologist. That's a Supreme Court justice's comments. Birthing people? What are we doing? They've created this whole new language: cisgender, transphobe, homophobe, glitter mom. You would be amazed at the entire vocabulary that surrounds this whole lie that they're bringing into our public education. I mean, gone are the days. Even math is being indoctrinated. Johnny has 2 mommies and Joey has 2 daddies. How many mommies and daddies do Joey and Tommy have? It's the whole thing is, it's ridiculous. They're weaving it into everything. They read little kids' books that say, who am I? When I was born, the doctor didn't know what my gender was, so he looked at my body and took a guess. But later, when I was old enough to decide, then I could tell him what my gender was. I mean, this is nonsense. This is very confusing. It's abusive. And they're taking advantage of the goodness and the innocence of young children. Because young children, when your parents decide they're going to put you in a school for 6 or 8 hours a day, they automatically assume that these are good people. Mommy and daddy are putting me here. They trust these people. They look up to the teachers as like they're another parent. It is really replacement parenting to some extent. And when they're telling you that you have to be nice to little Johnny because Johnny's got 2 moms, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be nice to little Johnny, but they're selling it. And if you don't have gender dysphoria, gender confusion, if they can't convince you to explore your own gender, then what they'll do is they'll turn you into an ally for other kids who they do crack through, who they do convince that maybe they were born in the wrong body. So you're either part of the LGBTQIA plus alphabet, or you're an ally. And if you're anything else, you're a hater.
Well, that's the thing too, and we'll get into it a little later in the conversation. Katie McCarthy joining us here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. protectourkids.org. Yeah, that's the thing. If there's one thing that has to be eradicated from all legislation, okay, on the federal and state level, is the phrase hate speech. There is no such thing as hate speech. We'll get into that later. Joe Rossinello.
I want to get to the root of this because this is my thoughts. We've been at this, Joe and I, for quite some time. We engage in all types of conversations, socially, politically, religious conversations. We're in a post-Christian phase of America. I think that's undeniable.
And the world, I think.
Yep, Western civilization specifically. And I think at the root of this, because this is a common sense issue, it's also a scientific issue. Science says there's 2 genders. Science says there's 2 genders. We no longer have a North Star, people in general, and we're clinging to things. We've become tribal as a nation because we're clinging to an identity. There was a time politically in America, say 60 years ago. There were differences of opinion, say on economics, say on union labor, say on immigration. But there was a common theme 60 years ago, that there was a God. And we all believed in that. You see, we don't anymore. This, if you ask me, is not a political issue. It's a godless issue, because our people are clinging to anything. Because there's an old saying, if you don't believe in God, you'll believe in anything. And here you mentioned the Supreme Court justice, a double Harvard graduate. Brilliant. She's either a coward because she won't address the issue and she wants the position, which is possible. But if you listen to what comes out of the Ivy League, some of these people are true believers. They're brilliant people. If you give them a test, they're getting 100 on every single one of them, because they don't have a North Star. And there lies the answer. We have to direct people to that North Star. And I'm going to give it over to both of you, because ultimately, if you ask me, we're never going to legislate morality. Even the most conservative states have betrayed Americans. I could look to Kansas. I could look to Kentucky when it comes
How about
to
Ohio recently with
but
abortion?
even Kansas and Kentucky make Ohio look like Massachusetts. I mean, let's be honest. They voted for abortion, radical abortion. So it's not a political solution. We have to direct people to the North Star. And that's what I think the answer is. I'll turn it to both of you, because ultimately that's why we're unmoored.
Katie, please.
Well, you know, I believe that the 10 Commandments are the foundation of all of our laws. And the founders, when they came here and set up shop, they didn't want a godless society. They weren't talking about, you know, separating the church from the state in the way that the liberals tell us we must do today. You have to have truth. If you don't have truth, you have nothing. It's not to love somebody to tell them, yeah, you know what? You make a pretty homely looking girl. Maybe you should try being a boy. There's nothing loving about that. The truth is the truth. You were born, your DNA cannot be changed. It doesn't, no matter how many hormones you take, no matter how many surgeries you have, you're never going to change your biological sex. And this whole gender construct is a complete lie. So you can't have truth if you don't have God. And I think that's where you're coming from, Joe. I agree, 100%.
Well, and the other thing too is you can't have love if you don't have truth, and that's it. And that, see, the problem too is if you look at, let's say, the traditional Catholic definition of what love is not a noun. Love is a verb. Love is to will someone else's good, but you can't do that if you separate it out from the truth. The truth is, the ones who are affirming these poor kids in this disorder, which is what it is, gender dysphoria is a disorder. The ones who are affirming them are the ones that are lying to them. And if you're lying to them, you're the hater, not us. By telling them the truth, nobody's saying tell them the truth and then, okay, now keep it moving. No, we'll help you. But as soon as you try to help some of these kids, oh, well, we want to ban conversion therapy, just to use that as an example, Katie McCarthy. Well, why? That's a voluntary thing between a therapist and an individual if they want. Why do states have to ban something to try to transition somebody back? Okay, because that person might understand the truth, that they're on the wrong path, that they're disordered, they're looking at things differently. See, that's a loving thing to try to want to, get somebody out of their disorder. So go ahead, Katie. You know where I'm going with that.
Why is it called conversion therapy? I mean, they redefine words left and right. If you were born a female and all of a sudden you want to be a male, why aren't we calling that conversion therapy to get you back to your biological sex? It's the people behind wanting to trans you who are involved in the conversion therapy. And so it's a complete lie. But, Joe, you had mentioned, where's all this coming from? And I'll tell you, when the Supreme Court affirmed same-sex marriage in 2015 in the Obergefell case, that sort of was the impetus that led the people behind this ideology to use discrimination as a reason to put all this stuff in schools. Because if they can push more and more same-sex marriage, and then you can have children, which that's a whole nother topic, the commodification of children. These children have rights to know their parents, to know their mother, and to know their father. And we're taking adults' disordered desires and we're placing them in front of children's established rights. And that, I mean, that's a problem. But so now you're starting to see all these kids in school that have two moms, two dads, a throuple, and we have to accommodate them. When we read little children's books, we have to read children's books about two daddies and two mommies and three parents and all different kinds of families. And soon pedophilia is going to come into the LGBT alphabet. It's rearing its ugly head left and right.
It's already here. Minority attracted individuals.
Right.
Isn't that or a minority attracted person? So they're
Mhm.
already, when you think there's no limit, think again. This is one
Right.
of the things, Katie McCarthy, that we try to emphasize in the show. Don't think there's a limit to where they will go. Yes, a pedophile, someone who preys on children, okay, is now considered a minor attracted person. And we have to understand that. I will say this, I'm going to hand it over to Joe before the break, is that I think I remember Jesus saying something about a millstone going around the neck of anyone who tries to do this to kids. They might not believe in Jesus. They will when that millstone is hanging around their neck. Joe Rossinello.
I think language is important. You mentioned something, and I want to touch on it: disordered behavior. You see, the LGBT lobby has done a fantastic job in mainstreaming same-sex marriage. Even amongst Christians, it's accepted. It's accepted amongst Republicans. It's accepted. You see, as a Catholic, never mind Christians in general, it's a sin. In fact, it's an abomination as defined by the Bible. Now, I don't hate anybody, but ultimately, I love you so much that I'm going to tell you that that lifestyle, in the eyes of God, to this very day, defined by every major religion in the world, is a sin. And if you're a Catholic, you're living in mortal sin if you are actively living in that lifestyle, not that you have those desires. If you're actively living in that lifestyle, you use the term disorder. You see, immediately that's viewed as you are a hater. No. Psychologically speaking, up until the 70s, homosexuality was defined by science as a disorder. And that was changed. Why? Did the science change? Absolutely not. It was pressure, political pressure, to change that language, to incrementally bring secularism into America. And they have succeeded greatly. So ultimately, we're not helping somebody, specifically as a Catholic, to encourage them to pursue a relationship that is ultimately going to lead you to hell because it's a sin. Talk about that, because I'll be honest with you, even amongst Christian circles, if people heard what I just said, they'll be like, you're a hater. No, I'm not. There is no hate in my language. I love you enough to tell you the truth, as Christ did to the woman at the well.
Joe, you keep talking like that, you're not getting invited to the barbecue. Go ahead, Katie McCarthy, joining us at the front line with Joe and Joe. We're talking about Protect Our Kids, and the organization is protectourkidsnow.org. Katie, please.
Yes. This all started because we have a godless society. When you have a godless society, you can let the devil in everywhere. That's true. However, I don't think you need to be religious in order to understand that this agenda in public schools is really dangerous and harmful to our children. It's abusive. We have the natural law, and I believe that the Ten Commandments are written on our heart. In fact, St. Paul had mentioned it in one of his letters. And you know that because if you are stranded on a deserted island your whole life and somebody steals your coconut, hits you over the head with a club, a caveman, and steals your coconut, and you never saw a Bible ever, you're violated. Somebody took your coconut. So you wouldn't want, it's a do unto others. It's the golden rule, right? You wouldn't want to take anybody else's coconut because you don't want somebody to take your coconut. So same thing. We have the natural law. We have the beauty of nature, of just how a baby is born, how a baby is conceived. And it wasn't until all this medical technology really fast-paced exceeded all the ethicists' laws and philosophical debate that we are just thrust into this crazy place of we're going to ignore the natural law. We're going to completely do our own thing, and babies are commodities, and sex is, men and women are not different. And I think that we should embrace our superpowers. I happen to love my superpowers as a woman, and I'm in awe of my husband's superpowers as a man. And we are so complementary. There are things he can do for me that I couldn't possibly do, and vice versa. And if we keep pushing that truth away, we're just creating more and more victims. And that's exactly what the Marxists want. They thrive on victims. That's why they want white people to be oppressors. That's why they want people of color to be oppressed. That's why they want cisgendered people to have their privileges taken away, because they're very fortunate that their gender identity matches their body. That's why people who are in the LGBT alphabet, they're supposed to get extra privileges, and they're supposed to get leniency, and they're supposed to be received into academia at higher rates, accepted into Ivy League schools because of their victim class. So the Marxist philosophy is creating this victimization of Americans that is causing all of this division and all of this untruth. I mean, that's really what we're talking about.
Well, especially Katie McCarthy, before the break, let me get a quick comment from you. Here's the thing, too. You mentioned the natural law. You mentioned people that are not necessarily Catholic, not necessarily Christian, not necessarily Orthodox Jew, an Orthodox Jew, or let's say a conservative Muslim. Okay. How about a natural law atheist? There's a lot of those out there. I have a dear friend of mine who's lapsed Catholic. I pray for he comes back into the church, but he basically is a natural law atheist. When you listen to him speak, he talks like me when it comes to morality, but he doesn't believe in God. He believes in science. He just had a newborn. If his kid comes home, he even told me, his kid comes home and the teacher tells his kid in school, his boy, that he could be a girl, this guy's going to go ballistic. My point in bringing this up is this. How much, and we have about a minute or so, Katie, before the break, why isn't this why there's a need to shut down free speech? Because our speech as Catholics is going to resonate with a lot of other people that might not be Catholic, but makes all the sense in the world because it comes from the natural law. Quick comment for about a minute, Katie.
Well, that's the cancel culture right there. And that's the chilling effect. I mean, you say the wrong things, you post the wrong things, you get on social media, you're a hater, you're a transphobe, you're going to get fired, you're going to get canceled, you're going to get shunned. Everybody's going to, ooh, that person is bad. And so everybody's afraid. Everybody's chilled into silence. You're absolutely right. And I would tell your friend, don't test the public schools. Don't do it. Come up with an alternate plan.
He won't. Like most lapsed Catholics I know, he's going to send his kid to Catholic school. All right. My brother-in-law doesn't care for the church too much either, but he sends my niece to Catholic school. They know where the good education is. Don't worry about it. They know it in their heart. Katie McCarthy joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. The organization is protectourkidsnow.org. Katie, do you have any personal social media you want to share or no?
You know, if you go to our website, www.protectourkidsnow.org, you'll find all of our social media, our YouTube channel. We have a podcast called Say What with Mark Schneider, our founder, and George Roska. They post podcasts weekly. There's a lot of good information there. But our website has everything.
All right, good. We have another great segment coming up with Katie McCarthy at the Veritas Catholic Radio Network. You're listening to The Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. Please share this video. Please share this video. If you see it on Twitter, share it on YouTube. If you see it on YouTube, share it on Facebook. Share it as many places you possibly can. Certainly download the Veritas app so that you can share it with your friends and you can have access to all of our station's content. So we're going to come right back with another great segment. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone, to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. We are way in the breach with Katie McCarthy. She is the director of marketing for protectourkidsnow.org, protectourkidsnow.org. And that's exactly what we're talking about today on the Veritas Catholic Radio Network, protecting our kids and exposing all the filth and corruption and lies and evil that's out there. Joe Rossinello.
I want to talk about solutions, begin this segment with solutions, what your organization offers. And I think a good starting point with that is looking at the three of us here. Katie, you homeschooled your 4 children in California. I live in New Jersey. I have 5 children. I send them to Catholic school. Joe Pasillo lives in Arizona and sends his son to a charter school. All of those are solutions, alternatives. But ultimately, not everyone can do that. Catholic school costs a lot of money. It really does. Me and my wife sacrifice immensely to do what we do. I'm sure you and your husband sacrificed immensely as well. Katie, and I say that because I can remember I recently had some dental work done. I had a tooth pulled out of my skull. It's a conversation for another day. It was fun. I was talking to his assistant. She was a good Catholic. She was pregnant with her third child. She was a Latina, and we were having a nice conversation. And I was telling her, you know, like I send my kids to Catholic school. She's like, I can't afford it. I wish I could. There's a lot of people like that, and we have to provide solutions for them too, because they're Catholic. They love their children. They have eyes. They see what's going on. What are some of the solutions? Obviously, I just mentioned 3 alternatives. We all took a route, different one, but we're addressing a concern as loving parents. What are solutions your organization is providing for people, all people?
Okay, well, I agree with you. Not everybody can afford or can make the sacrifices that need to be made. Some people are in a really difficult situation. They have to be very involved, though, if they are, because they are sending their kids into the lion's den every single day. And they can make better choices, like charter schools sometimes are better. The solutions that Protect Our Kids provides, we have toolkits on our website. We have toolkits for parents, toolkits for teachers, toolkits for pastors of churches and other people that want to start like co-op groups and small private schools. It's not as difficult as you might think. I was against homeschooling before I was for homeschooling. When I was a young mom, I had a baby. I was fully expecting to put my kids in public school. I'm a product of public school. I was kind of ignorant of the issues at the time. My daughter was born, and a few years later, I had twin boys, and the twins had some health issues. And I found myself going to the doctors a lot. And one of the boys was hospitalized 3 times in his first year of life for pneumonia. And the doctor at the hospital said, you have to pull your daughter out of preschool. And she was in the most secular, ridiculous preschool, I have to tell you. But I was ignorant. And he said, pull your daughter out of preschool, because if she comes home with a cold, your son is going to end up in the hospital. So I pulled my daughter out of preschool, and I was talking to a friend from church, from my Catholic parish. And I said, I feel really bad. My 3-year-old was doing so great. And she said, you know, you should homeschool her. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, just go get the Mother of Divine Grace kindergarten lesson plan at their website and just follow the instructions. It'll take you an hour and a half a day, four times a week. So I did that. I did that in waiting rooms of doctors' offices. It was the most amazing experience of my life. I was able to travel with my young family when the rest of the school year, everybody was in class. We were able to, there were so many benefits. And my husband and I became very catechized because we use a Catholic curriculum. So I backed into it. Okay. I was very fortunate. God called me to homeschool my kids. I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And that's what I did. And it turned out to be one of the most fruitful things, probably the most fruitful thing I've ever done. My oldest is a college graduate now. She graduated magna cum laude. I don't have any special education to teach people. I just was resourceful, and I just took it on 1 year at a time. So I would tell you that if you're home with your kids anyway, it's not expensive to homeschool them. There are a lot of programs out there in the hundreds, not thousands of dollars. I'm talking for the whole school year for one kid. That's number one. Number two, if you can't do it, again, I would, if I could talk to my 30-year-old self today and say, and give advice to a new mom, I would say, if you can't afford to do it where you are, I would have moved to some godforsaken place that I could, maybe it wasn't my preference, but I could get rid of a car. I could buy a house in cash. You know what I mean? Like I'll go to the Dakotas or something, just for the freedom to form my children's hearts and minds. It's an investment that pays off so tremendously. But on our website, there are tools. There are toolkits to give you information on homeschooling, on private schools, on charter schools. If you're a teacher, they'll help you get out of the teachers union because you're not helping the situation. I know a lot of teachers are trapped in this. It's a very unfortunate situation because they don't get into this line of work because they want to poison our children. They get into it because they love children. And unfortunately, the education system has changed on them. But one thing that teachers can do is get out of the unions.
My wife could make double what she's making now if she taught in the public schools. She teaches in the charter school. I mean, that's the
Right.
bottom line. Not because we're
Yeah.
great. I'm not trying to say that, but I told her a million times. I said we cannot compromise our Catholic faith. And if you are a teacher in a public school, that rainbow flag is going on that wall. And you are going to have to affirm that kid. My wife and I, we foster our son. We're hopefully, say a prayer for us. We're close to the adoption process, or the process coming to an end, and we can adopt him. Okay. When we went to the classes in New Jersey, all right, for the training classes for to be foster parents, that rainbow flag was on that wall. And that human rights campaign flag was on that wall. We were told straight up, if this is what we were told, Katie, if you have antiquated notions on sexuality, meaning if you're Catholic, okay, you don't want to be a foster parent, or maybe you should reconsider being a foster parent. Do you imagine the nerve on that? My wife had to squeeze my arm because I was going to get up and I was going to berate this guy. Okay. But leaving that aside for a second. Let me stick with, I think you mentioned unions.
Mm-hmm.
We say in the show all the time, Joe mentioned it earlier, that there are no political solutions to this. This is a spiritual problem. However, there are political acts that can be taken that would be beneficial to us in this. One of which, in my opinion, I know Joe agrees. I don't know if you do, but I'm going to throw it out there to you, is that the Department of Education, the federal Department of Education, needs to be abolished. Okay. You don't need the federal government overseeing something that is a local matter. Education is a local matter, and the unions have to be broken in the public sector unions in general, but particularly in the education system. They have too much power. They have too much say. Tell me if I'm wrong, Katie McCarthy.
No, you're absolutely right. They have too much money is what it comes down to. And if you're a teacher, you're paying dues into the teachers union, they're probably using that money to do things that go completely against your philosophies, your religion, your principles, your values. The National Education Association is a partner with the Human Rights Campaign. Now, the Human Rights Campaign is the largest LGBTQ advocacy group in the country. Together, these two are trying to get the Equality Act passed. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but in 1964, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was based on, Martin Luther King's principle of judge by the content of your character, not the color of your skin. And so that law made discrimination against people of color and biological sex illegal. Now the Biden administration is trying to modify the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and create the Equality Act and add to the protected classes the gender identity. What this would do essentially is it would federalize the idea that boys can go into girls' bathrooms and locker rooms, get in girls' sports teams, all that would be at the federal level. No longer will we have a fight state by state. This would be out of local hands. So this is what they're doing with their billions and billions of dollars right now. They're trying to push this through.
Well, here's the thing, too, and I don't want to say too much on the politics, but having said that, Joe and I think we're pretty fair, okay? We happen to vote Republican because, all right now, that's the only
Lesser of the
alternative.
two evils, yeah.
Yeah, right, and they're no bargain. But like, who said it recently? I think it was Eric Sammons at Crisis Magazine. He had a great video where he was talking about what does it mean to be conservative? Like, what are you conserving other than your own power? Because you're not really fighting for anything. When are we going to get some politicians that are going to actually run on abolishing the Department of Education and a few others? But that's more political. Let's stick with this conversation. Department of Education has, like you said, it has way too much power, way too much money. They shouldn't be telling a local school district in Arizona what they should be teaching their kids. They should have no power over whether or not that kid is accredited to be able to go on to higher education. No power whatsoever. We don't have any conservatives with any sort of real backbone. We have a party of Mitt Romney's, which is one of the biggest sins I ever committed in my life politically was voting for that guy. Okay. I'll throw this over to you, Katie, sometimes political help would be somewhat helpful in this, but we're getting none of it from the people who say they're on our side. I'd love your comment. Let me just
say before, Katie, the reason why is because they want to stay in power and they know the people aren't for it, Joe. You see, that's because we live in a post-Christian country. That's why the abortion legislation passed in Kansas and in Kentucky. You see, that's why these guys know. Because to be honest with you, they're not here other than to get power. That's why I'll be honest with you, I view it completely differently. And I love what Katie's doing from a grassroots perspective. I expect nothing from these people anymore. Nothing.
Well, then let me ask you this, and Katie, I'll throw it over to you. Then if okay, Joe, I'm gonna join you in that. Say I don't expect anything from them. Then guess what? Then I'm gonna stay home and not vote for them, because if they're not gonna do anything to fight against this, I might as well just not even vote, because nothing's gonna happen. Katie, I'd love your comments.
Okay, well, first of all, what happened to the Republican Party is we've become a bunch of libertarians. And conservatism, there's no room for libertarian, because freedom is great, okay, but freedom should not be the end in and of itself. To have the freedom to follow the natural law, to have the freedom to marry a person of the opposite sex, and to raise a family, and to start a business, and to earn a lot of money, and to support your family, that is what freedom is for. What's happened is freedom has been turned on its head, and now I have to be free to dress up like a drag queen, gyrate in front of children, and read perverted books to little kids in libraries. That's what freedom is turned into. And the libertarian view is really the you do you, and I'll do me. Okay, you don't want to go to church? That's fine. Don't go to church. So I'll go to church. But it's so much more than church. Like I said, it's drag queen story hour. I mean, how did we get to the point where politically okay to sexualize children, to indoctrinate them in very offensive and pornographic images and ideas? That's what we're doing.
Katie, I got to comment on this real quick. You see some of these videos of some of these parents that go up in front of these school boards, and they read from the very material that they're objecting to the school board, and the school board turns around and says, we don't allow that inappropriate language in the school board meeting. Right. That's the point. That's the point, is that it's inappropriate. If it's inappropriate in a school board meeting, well, guess who else it's inappropriate for? The 8-year-old kid or the 5-year-old kid. Let me throw it over to Joe Rossinello. Katie real quick. Katie McCarthy joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe on the Veritas Catholic Radio Network. Remember to download the app, share it with your friends, wherever you're seeing this video. Please share it. If you're seeing it on Twitter, share it. If you're seeing it on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, please share it. These are the types of conversations that send our enemies crazy. That's one of the reasons why we do it. We like to make them a little bit crazy. Joe Rossinello.
Katie McCarthy's organization, Protect Our Kids, is giving people solutions. Look it up. Protect Our Kids. Look it up. And we're talking solutions. I want to talk a solution. The Rosary. We, the three of us, live in affluent areas. We do. I live in Bergen County. Joe lives near Scottsdale, Arizona. Katie lives in a suburb of Dallas. She came from Orange County. How do we protect our children? Because the world comes through our front door, as Ray Guarendi from EWTN said, like a mist. It comes under the door. It comes into your house. I watch TV with my kids. Very little TV. Most of the TV we watch is DVDs, and Disney is banned in my house. It's blocked because the commercials are crazy. So the world is coming in your house. What is the front line thing a Catholic can do? Do we prioritize our faith to our children? Are we a pro-life family? As in, not just with our words, with our life, womb to tomb. Do we pray the rosary as a family? Do we go to church together as a family? Is that and why do I mention the affluent areas? Katie, you raised your family in Orange County, California. It is so beautiful there. It's absurd. I've been there. It's ridiculous. Bergen County, very wealthy area as well in New Jersey. Kids, the priority with the kids. I want my kid to go to an Ivy League school. Even parents that send them to Catholic schools. The priority is success. My priority for my 5 kids is heaven.
Heaven. Mm-hmm.
Heaven is the priority. I don't care if they work at ShopRite. Now, if that's as good as it gets, so be it. I want them in heaven. That's my job as a dad. And that is the front line thing. We have to witness our love of God through our children in our house. And when we do that, that is something that will last. comments from both of you, because I'll be honest with you. I say that because is that happening? Particularly in the three areas that I just noted. I'm not picking on them, but I have eyes. What's the priority? My priority is heaven, not getting a 1480 on the SAT.
You know, compulsory education started in 1852 in Massachusetts because Horace Mann, he was a school board guy. He had decided that he wanted to, it was an anti-Catholic thing, to be honest. The original founders were more Protestant, and a lot of Catholics were moving into the area, and they didn't want the Catholics to come in and brainwash the Protestants. So they decided they would start compulsory education, and it was very much Christian. We have 50 million children in public education today. It is a revolving door of just conditioning, replacement parenting, brainwashing, teaching our kids values from the perspective of the Department of Education and from the local levels. So it's, you know, you're in this culture where public school has been such an institution forever that it's almost impossible to ignore the fact that it's a path. And a lot of people pick it because they think they're getting something for free. They're not getting something for free. They're going to pay dearly for it, particularly in the long run when they have, you know, a lot parents lose their kids to some of this ideology. There are horrendous stories about kids running away from home and going to live with other families and being recruited and indoctrinated into the LGBT lifestyle. This is not like a one-off here and there. I get emails every single day about stories like this, and it just blows my mind how ubiquitous this is. You know, I agree. The rosary is the weapon. It is the weapon. Unfortunately, Joe, I don't know that as many Catholic families understand that heaven should be the goal. As you know, I would say not all of them do, and that's what we need to get through to them. That this, you know, you don't see a U-Haul on the back of a hearse at somebody's funeral, right? What you get here is very temporary.
Yeah, Katie McCarthy's joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello are way in the breach. Her organization, Protect Our Kids, the website, protectourkidsnow.org. I will say this, any of those, you know, I look at it this way. When there was a production code on Hollywood, okay, where Hollywood couldn't, like Joe mentioned, canceling Disney, which is a really good idea to do. Cancel Hollywood in general, all right? The production code kept Hollywood in check. There's certain things they couldn't do. No nudity, no profanity, no blasphemy. How's that? We have to navigate on the TV because my wife, when somebody says GD, pierces her ear like somebody stuck her in the head with a knife. And we don't want our son to hear it. Even something that's PG-13, that's all it is GD, GD, JC, JC. It's like, you know, but there was a time the production code kept Hollywood in check. It was, I think, appropriately enough at the same time that you had Americans praying the rosary, okay? You had the Holy Name Society, okay, where there were Eucharistic processions in the street. This is like in the 40s and the 50s, okay? Fulton Sheen was the highest rated show on TV. Could you imagine that? American Catholicism was vibrant and strong. And I mean strong. These people that we're talking about today, Katie, they're powerless against that kind of Catholicism. That's why Joe, when I was with him in Jersey, we do the first of the month rosary. Joe still does it. I go down here with a bunch of guys in Arizona, do the same thing, okay? To bear that public witness, that's what's actually going to change things. Listen, I'm not one of those people that wants to go into the past, but the fact is I'd much rather live in 1940s and 50s America or the 1970s America that I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, than in this filth if I was a 15-year-old now, all right? So that's my comment on praying the rosary. When people, especially like even Protestants, respected the Catholics that did that because they saw we were a force to be reckoned with. Talk about that, the public witness, to not be afraid to say, look, I understand Christian, conservative, all this stuff, natural law. We're Roman Catholic and we're saying no. That's the bottom line. Join us. Join us.
A public expression of faith is a great thing. And when, you know, for my kids, whenever we hear GD, I'll say, blessed be the name of Jesus. And, you know, that becomes a habit. Then all of a sudden the kids hear GD or JC, blessed be the name of Jesus. And then other people hear, it creates a little bit of an awareness. It's kind of like praying before meals at restaurants. You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many times people have said, "Oh, wow, that's so lovely that you do that." You know, and I'm with my family and we say a prayer before we eat, and we're not real loud and obnoxious about it. It's very, and we very under the radar, but people notice, and people
Sure.
take notice when you have your ashes on your forehead on Ash Wednesday, and when you ask at work, "Hey, I can go to that convention this weekend, but I'm going to need some time off, either Saturday night or Sunday morning to go to mass," and they go, "Wow, hey, you go." That, like, I don't go to church, and I'm a fallen away Catholic, but God, yes, we need to accommodate you. That's witness, and we need more of that. And people need to be boldly Catholic, and they need to proclaim the truth. And the good news is that the new evangelization is coming. What St. Pope John Paul II had promised, I think it's underway, and it's a slim majority of us who are actively fighting against this cultural filth that it's attacked every single institution. But you know what? You guys are right that this kind of transcends political parties. This is not a Democrat issue or a Republican issue. This is a parental rights issue. And if we can reach parents and explain to them exactly what they're doing and showing children in public schools, they're going to get their kids out, and they're probably going to find a non-secular alternative, which is going to be so much better for their souls.
Joe,
I wanted
I
Joe,
want to
real
just
quick.
bridge that because
Go
real
go
quick,
ahead.
like on
Go
terms
ahead.
of what you said, because I agree with you. Politics is about coalitions. That's how people win. Let's talk brass tacks. Coalitions. There are apolitical issues. Kids are apolitical. It's an apolitical issue. It's your kids. You could talk to people, Democrats who vote, who love their kids. They're against this. You see, if you ask me, this is an overplay of a powerful hand. To be honest with you, I think it's a loser. And this is, I think, a unification for people out there. We may not agree on everything, but we don't want this for our kids, because you have kids and so do I. And you don't want this. I know you don't. And I think it's a bridge. Joe, what do you think?
No, what I was going to say is this. I mean, you could measure our success by well, Joe and I have said on the show, Katie, a million times that if the greatest counter-revolutionary act you could commit right now is to open your mouth and speak the truth. Okay. And that's why if you look at the just insane response of this billionaire Elon Musk buying Twitter for $45 billion. Twitter, $45 billion compared to $1 trillion market cap that Facebook has, a couple $1 trillion market cap that Google has. Okay. Why did they get so insane? Because God, when he created man, gave us the ability to speak. That when we have a thought, we have language and we could speak to one another. That's why they're insane. They know that if we just have this conversation with people who are not even Catholic, it's a threat to them, because lies die in sunlight. Okay. And that's why they have to keep clamping down on free speech, keep clamping down. So what we're doing, Joe and I are not two brave guys. Joe's got a family. I got a family. We're working guys, Katie. We don't get paid for this. We're risking our jobs by doing this. I want to go to heaven, so I'm going to do this. I want what's best for our kids, all of our kids, not just our kids, the Jewish kids, the Muslim kids, the atheist kids. I don't want them taught this crap. Okay. So we'll get out there into that breach. Hopefully a couple of jamokes like us from New Jersey, okay, can actually inspire the people to say, you know what? I need to do that too. We need to start speaking out against that. Your comments quickly, Katie, please.
Courage is courageous, right? As they say. So we all have to keep doing what we're doing. I have to tell you, the biggest threat right now is the transgender contagion. And between 2016 and 2019, those numbers tripled. The number of people that actually had surgeries and medical procedures, from, I think, to well over 13,000 in the year 2019, actually had transgender surgery, had chemical castration or a double mastectomy. And now you have all these people who are detransitioning, and they have such regret. And I think it's going to take a lot of those people suing those who are making tons of money off of this industry because Big Pharma is making money. We've got gender clinics popping up all over the country. And the corporate, you know, you have Target with the bathing suits. And I mean, you know, California just passed a law that all retail stores that sell toys now have to have a non-binary toy aisle. So you've got like the pink aisle with the Barbies and the blue aisle with the trucks. And then you have to have a non-binary aisle for fluid, non-binary kids. It's insane, but there is a lot of money. A lot of rich white guys pushing this transgender thing.
Well, that's the thing. And a lot of those, just like we talked about earlier, a lot of those rich white guys are in the Republican Party and come asking for our vote and say, I'm pro-life and I'm pro-family. Vote for me. All right. I'm tired of voting for you. I'm telling you, what are you going to do? You want a quick story, Katie, and we're probably going to have to end it here. The quick story, that girl, Chloe Cole, okay?
Yes.
Who has detransitioned, okay? Was recently at there was a drag queen thing or whatever. She went with this other guy who's a famous YouTuber or Twitter guy, and they went and they protested silently. Well, not maybe silently, but they were carrying signs. They went over to the barrier, and this let's just be charitable. This transgender person came over and started getting in her face. The anger that you saw because this girl says publicly, I was lied to. I was lied to. I was a minor and I was lied to by some scum doctor, okay, who convinced her to actually do this. And now she's going to suffer for the rest of her life because of that. And you got even conservative, like you said, you mentioned libertarians. I'm sure some Republicans and conservatives say, well, you know, it's a person's choice or whatever, or some stupid comment they would make. In the meantime, this girl's scarred for the rest of her life, and she's got to deal with that. But my point was about the anger that you see when here's a girl that did transition, drunk the Kool-Aid, all right, and now regrets it. And she's going to be scarred for the rest of her life.
Joe, the Supreme Court just denied a case.
Joe, I'm sorry, Joe. We're up against it. We got to get out of here. Katie McCarthy, one more time, where can people the website and any other information?
It's all at protectourkidsnow.org. Download some free brochures, share them with your friends, attend a school board meeting, get your kids out of public school now.
Katie McCarthy, thank you so much for having this conversation with us at the front line with Joe and Joe. We know you're going to have you back if you would be gracious enough to come back and visit a couple guys from New Jersey. But we thank you so much, all right? And like I said to everybody out there, please share this video wherever you see it. Thank you for joining us at the Veritas Catholic Radio Network. And anywhere you see this, remember to share it wherever you can. And until the next time, our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.